Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very next episode of Coffee Tea, You and Me. This is Coach Powell Training Development, and I'm here to hopefully host a wonderful program for you today where you can learn, interact, engage, enjoy fellowship with other networkers that are out there throughout all over the world. If you are calling in or phoning in or watching for the first time, put your information in the chat. Let us know who you are, what city you're coming in from, whether you're watching this from YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or Instagram, or any other social media page. Make sure that you put your information in the chat. Even if you are watching on demand and you're catching the program a little bit later, or maybe over the weekend or next week sometime, definitely put your information in the chat, just because we try to make an entrepreneur friendly environment for everybody. What's that mean? The more you engage, the more opportunities you have. And for sure, if there is a program or something that you are doing that you want to shout out, you want to let everybody know about, again, put that information in the chat, put the links to the event in the chat, put the links to whatever content that you want to share in the chat. Let's make sure that we make things available for you. I've been doing this program now for almost 20 years. We started out in the local coffee shops here in Centerville, Virginia. And we got to a point where we had 20, 30 entrepreneurs kind of coming every single week, just to talk about what's going on in their world. And we want to continue that tradition. Even after COVID, we started doing this online. But it's very important that we keep the dialogue going. So if you have a question about anything in your business, if you have a thought that you want to share, again, engage, put that information in the chat. Let us know you're out there. We'll try to do what we can to give you a shout out. And if we have an opportunity to acknowledge you, we will definitely do so. So don't feel like, you can't make a comment or you can't say anything. All opportunities are there. And if you have something that you want to post or share, do that. Don't keep this program a secret, because the more you tell others about it, the more you shout it out and help other people understand that it's a great opportunity for them to learn, to grow, to share opportunities with one another. The better it's all going to be for everybody, right? So we want to make sure that we're as communicative and community minded as possible. Today we are continuing the series. For those of you who know, I created the VisionQuest 90 process years ago to help entrepreneurs and business leaders really focus on getting on track and staying on track to their greatest success. And it usually works best for licensed professionals who've been in the game for a while, and they're hitting those plateaus as they get closer and closer to succession planning, or get closer and closer to trying to figure out what their legacy means and how they want to continue that legacy and how they want to create that legacy when it comes to their business. So that's what we're all about here at Coach Powell Planning, Training and Development. And we are talking at this point about goal setting. Now, there's some brilliance that I have to share with you when it comes to goal setting. And it goes all the way back to kind of my original training about the thought process. When I first started doing training and development years ago, before I actually was in the profession, I started to begin to understand training for myself and really understanding what that stuff was all about. I really began to look at, the various different programs and people that are out there that I could learn from. I could learn, the biggest business ideas from. And one of my favorite, and I consider myself to this day a follower of Dr. Stephen Covey, the late great Dr. Stephen Covey, and I consider myself a Coveyite. And what does that mean? I follow the 7 habits, 100% lock, stock, and barrel. I even follow the 8th habit, which, if you hang around with me long enough, we'll even expose you to that kind of stuff as well. But one of the most important tenets of the 7 habits of highly effective people is begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. And that's actually the second of all the 7 habits of highly effective people as defined by Dr. Stephen Covey. Now, this principle is one of my favorite because it lets you know that all things, no matter what it is created twice. The first creation is in your mind when you begin to conceive of what it might be, what it might look like, what might happen in your life and your business as a result of accomplishing or getting to the point where you're nearly there towards your vision. And you realize that if you have a vision or goal or an accomplishment that you're focusing on, that you really want to get out there, the first level of creation is thinking about it, conceiving it, trying to make it as clear in your mind as possible. And we're going to go over some techniques today to help you to really clarify what that goal should be for you and how you should work it out. But think about it. If you're beginning with the end in mind, before you get started on trying to accomplish something or doing anything really, if you understand and conceive of what it might look like when it's all said and done, what is it going to be like when it's all said and done? What are you going to feel like when it's all said and done? What are you going to be, do, or have that you cannot right now as a result of achieving or attaining the vision, the goal, approaching and embarking on the mission? All those things are going to be important ideas to concept. Now, but they're off in the distance. They're in the future. They're not something that you're achieving right now, but you have to think about it as if you had already achieved it. What's it going to be like once you've gotten there? What's it going to feel like? And the better you are for visualizing that first initial side of creativity, the easier it's going to be to take the next step of creativity, right? The next step of creativity is not just thinking about it, right? But then it's bringing it into existence. And a part of bringing it into existence and making it real for yourself is writing it down. Writing it down and then transferring it to others who may need to support you in one way or shape or form, people who may need to invest in you, people who may need to work alongside with you as collaborators, people who may need to be led and developed by you in order to create the resources needed to move things forward and whatever that is. But you should write it down first. And you should literally think about writing it down in the most brilliantly articulated ways you could possibly write anything down. So today we're going to talk to you about goal setting strategies, right? But we're going to talk to you about goal setting strategies within the concept of your personal network. So why is this important? Why is it important for you to conceive of the network, people around you that you're going to need in the future to accomplish all the things that you want to accomplish? Whether that's 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. What is your network going to look like at that point in time? And this is a very important thing to think about, because if you can envision your future network, then you can begin to put together the plan that you're going to need to meet those individuals, to recruit those individuals, to begin to work to collaborate with those individuals, to be able to share resources back and forth with those individuals in ways that create what we like to call in the roundtable world a win-win scenario, where nobody loses, everybody wins. So everybody wins when you share resources. When you come together and decide these are the things that we have available to use, this is the time, the talent, the treasure we have available to accomplish whatever we need to accomplish, and we're going to share that time and that talent and that treasure with other people, that makes everybody stronger. Right? We've talked earlier about the brilliant side of collaboration, but goal setting together is, I can't tell you what's more special than people coming together to decide this is what we want to achieve. This is what we want to be. This is who we think we are or we want to be in the future. And this is the things we'd like to have, the things we'd like to see, the things we'd like to approach, what we want to accomplish as a result of sharing our tools, our resources, sharpening ourselves with each other. Developing resources that we don't currently have with resources from other people that we need to get closer to. We need to develop more stronger relationships with. This is when you really know you're cooking with steam. And there are about 5 or 6 different areas we're going to get into when it comes to this goal setting and working to help using your goal setting strategy to achieve your network. So let's sort of give you a brief overview, and then we're going to jump into the big sexy part of this whole thing, right? So when you think about goal setting and you're thinking about developing goals for your group, your team, people that you're working with, your future vision for your network, all that kind of good stuff, you have to be able to define a cohesive vision, a thought process, a destiny, a strategy, or a process that feels almost like um, when your purpose has perfectly aligned with all the resources and the technology and the things you need to have available to bring it into fruition. What is that vision? What is it going to look like? What is it going to feel like? What are you going to be able to accomplish, do, be, have that you don't right now? Right? That's a good idea when you think about your vision. Now, I wrote the VisionQuest process. This is what I was thinking, right? So you have to define a cohesive vision, one that not only is a vision, but also one that brings people together, helps people to understand the reasons why they should share their resources. The second thing is you're going to want to encourage the kind of communication that is about an open dialogue, right? Where people are free to share their ideas, or people feel comfortable coming together with their thoughts in their best, concepts or strategies, whatever it is. You want people to feel free communicating and telling others, listen, this is what I can bring to the table. This is what I want to do. This is an idea that I have that I think it can be useful for all of us, without being fearful that the idea is going to be stolen, or something's going to happen, or something that is going to make it more difficult for individuals to work together, right? You want to create that idea, that open dialogue opportunity where people are freely sharing their thoughts and ideas. The third thing you want to also do when you're creating any type of goals, and this is not difference is different between goals and a vision, right? When you're talking about goals, you're talking about something that is that follows the acronym SMART, right? So SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, meaningful, achievable, relevant, and timely. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. And we're going to go through the details with that, but it's very, very important that you don't waste a lot of time in goal setting with goals that aren't SMART. If you're trying to achieve something that is not relevant, then that doesn't make any sense. Or you're trying to achieve something that you can't even say this is going to be relatively important for some other reason, or relatively important because there's a deadline coming up, or some kind of timeliness associated with it that's going to make it even more meaningful to do at a specific time. It's really hard to put goals together that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely, right? The third thing you want to think about, sorry. The next thing you want to think about, that was the third. The SMART is the third thing. But the fourth thing you want to think about when it comes to really, really creating and leveraging goals collectively with one another is, how do you leverage your collective objectives and all of the key results that you're going to need to put together in order to create that cohesive strategy and techniques together. How are we going to do that? The fifth thing you want to think about is, how do you create this organized area of regular check-ins and feedback loops. When you have the level of communication, you don't want to have just open dialogue for the sake of open dialogue. You want to have open dialogue in the way that helps you move the needle, or helps you move the process forward, right? So in order to do that, you have to continually analyze it, continually check in on it, continually ask the questions. Can it be more effective? Can it be more efficient? Getting the feedback you need to make sure that you've kind of uncovered all the opportunities. And the last thing you always want to remember, number 6, when it comes to developing your goal setting strategy for your team, for your group, or for your future network, right, is you have to have a process to celebrate the milestones. Because within whatever process you're doing, when you can honor those who are part of that process in a meaningful way, in a way that others can see that you are authentically and clearly grateful and thankful for the opportunity to even work together or be a part of the team or whatever that is. It really makes a difference for other people when it comes to their esprit de cure. Now, all of these thoughts, all of these ideas, all of the 6 concepts that I just mentioned to you really boil down to 3 key things, right? 3 key ideas. One is clear communication, the other is shared accountability, and the other is a strategic alignment. So when you're developing your network for the future, these people that are going to be there and it's going to be holding you up, it's going to be helping you accomplish and achieve the greatest things you may have ever achieved in your life. And of course, the more you work with other people to achieve things, the greater those achievements become, because there's something magical that happens within a group or a team that's working together that individuals could never even begin to embark on. And we're going to get into some of that a little later on. So if you haven't strapped on your pen set right now and really got your notes out for us to really get in and break a lot of this stuff down, let's get in it. So the first thing we talked about, right, is developing and defining a cohesive vision where everybody on the team, everybody that you're working with understands the overall mission and how their individual goals contribute to the bigger picture of achievement that you're going to paint with one another. And you have to ask yourself, when it comes to the network, what will that network of your brilliant future look like? Who will be in your inner circle? Who will be on your advisory council? What resources will you bring to the table to mentor or to become mentored by whom and by how many people, right? How many mentors do you need to have or will you have at that point in time? And more importantly, how will you honor them as you get closer and closer to achieving your greatest victories, right? You're going to want to take the time doing your stand-up meetings or your annual meetings, your biannual meetings, your quarterly planning sessions, or whatever you want to do to always reorient the team or the group to the overall mission. Before you send them off to their goal-setting pursuits, you want to make sure that everybody understands everyone else's role and how they can work together collectively and as individuals to pull the total program together. Now, if you've got a team where there's 700 people or more, I mean, it's very difficult for everybody to understand what everybody's going to do, right? Every person, every single individual. But if you have the team in tiers where there's a leadership team at the top and there's maybe 5 or 6 leaders in that team, and each of those leadership teams have, a group of people that's maybe 10 or 12 people, and each of those group of people have a group of people that's either, 5 or 6 people or whatever that is, then it's easy for everybody to have this kind of orientation. And every team leader then is responsible for making sure the people on their team have a collective orientation to one another. And you have to always know who's on the team and what are their strengths, what are their gifts, what can they bring to the table that can ensure that we have the right stuff. Now, just because people have resources, just because they have talent, just because they have time, just because they have money or treasure, right, we like to call that, does not mean they're going to bring that to the table for this mission of yours, right? And so you have to make sure you have everything in place to develop and drive that commitment. And without a cohesive vision, it is very, very difficult for people to engage in opportunities and stay focused on those opportunities. Remember, the people that you're talking about bringing to the table to help you define this vision, these are your key leaders. They have to carry the message out to their teams. So it has to be simple. It can't be complicated. You might even want to sit in on their team sessions to make sure that the message is clear and answer any questions down the pike that the various teams or various departments or various aspects of the group, as you kind of make sure that the message is sent, that everybody knows what the ultimate goal is, why you have this goal, how you hope to achieve the goal, what kind of meaningful mission-based purpose and resources can you put behind developing the purpose of this thing, and how can you now also use this goal as a launch pad for some type of gifting or celebration, or some type of benefit that will be collective, that everybody can participate in and enjoy. So this is what defining a cohesive vision is all about. And you're going to make sure you always do that. The second thing you want to do, as I mentioned earlier, is to always encourage an open dialogue. All right? Because ultimately what you want is you want to create a culture in your organization where team members feel comfortable sharing their ideas, bringing up their concerns. All of this fosters what we like to call psychological safety, right? It's an environment where people feel safe. They feel like they belong. They feel like they're special. They feel like they're needed. They feel like they're necessary. All right. So once you've assembled this amazing network, you have to be able to ensure that there's mutual benefit and appreciation on the team. And you have to design a space and environment where people feel connected, where they feel protected, and more importantly, where they feel cared for. Connected, protected, and cared for. You've got to make sure that happens if you're going to lead, even be a part of the leadership development of a network that is strong. Because if people belong to a network and they don't feel connected with one another, and they don't feel protected from the outside environment of the network, and they don't feel cared for within the network, it's very, very difficult, again, for you to kick off any implementation that's not marred with thoughts and ideas about doubt, serious ideas about the lack of respect or lack of caring within the group. People don't feel connected. They're not likely to have, those open dialogue and that conversation that you want. And when people feel like threatened, as a matter of fact, when they feel like they're not safe or they're not comfortable in the environment, they're not gonna. It's not psychologically safe, right? Which means emotionally, psychologically, they will not give their best. They cannot give their best. It's not responsible to ask somebody to give you their best effort and their best work when there's no benefit to them whatsoever. In fact, there are no rewards to be thought of. There's no gifts to be grown. There's no reason for them to give their best. There has to be a reason. Like I told you earlier, people don't necessarily have to volunteer their time, their talent, their treasure. So you have to provide that cohesive vision, right? But also it's important in making sure that they will have a place where their concerns will be addressed. You want to make sure that all the voices are heard and understood, right? It's all very, I love when people have these listening posts or these listening strategy sessions where, the leadership doesn't say anything. We're just here to listen, or take a survey, or do something where you're getting information, feedback, or dialogue from the team, but you're registering no level of understanding. You're not giving them feedback and go, okay, well, here's what we found out as a result of the survey, and here's what we now know, or here's what we found out when we came to the listening session, or when we sat down and just participated and engaged with everybody. Here's what we know. Here's what we found out. Here's what we can use. Here's something that we think is useful, meaningful, and agreeing, right? That has been a level of understanding, because I may say I get it. You might be talking to me. We may have a dialogue. Whatever I say, I get it. I understand where you come from. That makes sense. Blah 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 blah. I can say those kinds of things and give you that kind of feedback. But do I really get it? How do you know? Right? I need to give you enough information, and then you need to be in listening mode and analysis mode enough to register. Yes, you do understand it. In fact, you understand it in a way that I didn't even know that you could understand it. Whatever that is, you need to give that kind of feedback and make sure that you validate the understanding, right? And make sure when you're trying to be understood that you do that. And when you're trying to understand someone else, you seek that validation. Let me get this right. Let's make sure I understand exactly what you're saying. What you're saying to me is, this. And you're saying that that's vital and important towards achieving this mission from your point of view. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Now that, and again, understanding is not just repeating back what the person said, right? Understanding is truly embracing and engaging and really coming with the emotional content that you need to come up with to make sure that you're communicating back and forth. Now, this is very difficult for people who are on the spectrum, right? If you are on the spectrum for autism or ADD or some other type of neurological difference, you're on that, what we call the neurological spectrum, then you may not respond in ways that people can see that your responses are quote unquote normal, right? You might be smiling when you really want to cry. You might be, you might just, your face won't give it up, your body language won't give it up. Your reflections or your responses to stimuli don't look like the rest of us are used to seeing, and so we don't necessarily know how to read what that response means. It's even more important that you dig deep and you seek understanding and you make sure that you've done what you can to get understanding, because it may come from a different point of view than maybe you've understood or thought in the past. So this is hard work, but it's a requirement, right? So use your small group sessions, use your one-on-one sessions, use your strategy sessions to make sure that you're listening, offering meaningful feedback, really uncovering the ideas about the roles, the responsibilities, the systems that you need to use, the tools you need to use to make any environment or anything move forward better, faster, stronger, whatever that is you need to know. And there's a couple key questions that you can ask to sort of ensure that you're doing all you can with this, right? One question I like to ask is, what can we do better to help move the needle on this project? How can we support you in this mission? How do you plan to improve both effectiveness and efficiency as we move forward? Everybody can ask those questions. And in the answering of those questions, or even the attempt to answer those questions, you often uncover things that you wouldn't have uncovered had you not answered the question or ask the question, attempt to respond to the question. And it can be simple as, okay, everybody go to the whiteboard and write down, 3 ideas of how we could be more effective and or efficient at what we do. And don't look at everybody else's ideas. Write down on a sticky note 3 to 5 ideas. And if everybody can't come up with 3 to 5 ideas, that's okay. They can come up with 1 or 2. But the key is to stimulate the thinking. The key is to hear and begin to understand one another. Now, one of my favorite things about goal setting is this third section. And people don't necessarily apply these goal setting things to their network, because your network is something that probably previous to this explanation that I'm giving or talking to you about right now, you kind of grew organically. It just sort of happened. You just happen to be working together with somebody on a project. You just happen to be in a training program with somebody that you got experienced the information at the same time, same class, so to speak. You may have to have gone to some type of school or whatever to a group of people, and they became what I would call your organic network. But your strategic network is not your organic network. Your strategic network is the people that you purposefully develop professional relationships with. And you purposefully focused on what can happen, how you can both enhance each other's lives. And, the more people you have in that network, the more you have to have more controls and more consistent collaborative mechanisms to make that work, right? So it's very, very important that you use this SMART acronym. The SMART acronym it can be specific, it can be measurable, it can be achievable, relevant, and time bound. Now, I often, when it comes to developing my network, right, I'm always looking for certain qualities in people. I'm looking for people who, one, have ideas that they bring to the table. All right. If you're not afraid to share your ideas, it means you're not afraid of me, right? It helps me feel comfortable that, you don't, again, I'm not talking about those things that require an NDA for you to be comfortable sharing. Because if you can share certain aspects of the idea without an NDA, like for example, the benefits of your idea, or something you could always share, right? How it's going to impact society or the world. It's something you can always share. That doesn't have to be, you're not telling anybody necessarily specifically what the idea is from the first initial part of the relationship. You might be talking to them about the benefits of the idea, but this idea is going to be able to allow yourself or other people to be, do, or have outside of, this particular moment. And it doesn't depend on this moment, but you're giving people an idea of the direction, right? You're giving, again, this is about vision casting, right? And it can be as specific as you want to be when it comes to that. The idea also needs to be measurable, right? How will you know you've arrived at this moment? And a lot of times that's difficult for people to conceive of, because when you're talking about relationship goals, right, you're trying to measure the intensity of a relationship. And how do you know that relationship is meeting the kind of quality that you need it to meet? Right. And if you're networking to try to achieve something, or try to achieve something from a group of people, maybe they're on your advisory council, maybe your mentors, maybe your stakeholders, maybe your referral sources, maybe your friends and associates, whatever they are, you're trying to measure the quality of that relationship. And I will tell you that mutually agreed upon measure of quality of the relationship is going to be better than you thinking, this is what I need to see from this other person, and they're thinking this is what they need to see from you. Because collectively you could come up with, well, how good are we doing when it comes to the team goal or the relationship goal, right? Achievability. Now, when it comes to, again, relationships, for something to be achievable between 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, however many people on the team, or however many people are in the collaborative effort, right? It's kind of difficult to achieve something collectively if you're going to be working at odds with one another, right? If you don't understand each other's talents, each other's gifts, each other's abilities, each other's willingness to access, use, and share those abilities towards a meaningful outcome that you both would like to see, then this goal might not be achievable, right? So you got to be willing to lay it on the table and examine it for what it is, and then, be sure that you're willing to make the commitment to actually share whatever those resources are. Because without that commitment, then the achievability of your particular goal becomes strained, if at all possible. Then, of course, there's relevant. We don't want to go in life. Human beings literally do not want to go throughout their lives, throughout their days, throughout their moments, doing things that don't matter. We want to matter. We want to be relevant. We want to be significant. We want to be acknowledged for such, whether we say so or not, whether we're trying to be humble or not, we still want to make sure that we're doing meaningful things. I call it our MRS degree, right? It's meaningful, relevant, and what's this? Not specific. Meaningful, relevant, and significant. That's the acronym for the MRS, right? I created that acronym. But I think that when you talk about, is your goal relevant, right? You have to be able to answer all the different phases of that particular concept, the MRS concept. Is it meaningful? Meaningful might have to do a lot with who sees it, how they're experiencing it, and the timeliness of it. Is it relevant? Again, it may have to do with, how people feel about it, how others receive it, what feedback they give you to let you know that it actually worked and actually special, actually something they want or need to achieve is relevant, right? Is it significant? Does it have impact? Does it have girth, so to speak, in terms of, its weight in gold? Is it significant? All those things are part of the relevancy equation. And then finally, there's the timeliness of it. When you're thinking about your network, There are certain people you need in your network at certain periods of time. And there's certain people you need in your network, and certain people that you have in your network that you don't need to access to right now for whatever reason. Now, I will tell you, I'm a big believer when it comes to networking is getting the people in your network before you need them. If I know I'm going to need, one or two financial resources, people who can drop $2, $3, $5 million in my business at any given time in the future, I'm going to want to have those people in my network as soon as possible. So I'm going to want to start doing some kind of collaborative efforts with them. I want to sort of talk with them about what's important to them and what makes them feel comfortable leveraging this investment versus that investment and so on and so forth. I want to build that professional relationship with them as soon as I can. I want to offer something of value to them as soon as I can. I want to begin to work on that offering and making sure that offering is received and understood and taken advantage of. If not, then what is our relationship doing? What is the true value of our relationship if we're not doing something that's meaningful and if it's not collaborative or not mutual, right? So the push is to find out not just how do we play together in the sandbox, or should we play together in the sandbox, but how we're going to play together in the sandbox in a way that's going to be meaningful and enriching to everybody involved. If that's not what you're trying to do, then I feel like you're trying to take advantage. One person is trying to take advantage of another person, and they're not bringing a fair opportunity to the table, and that can't last. Because anytime you have this imbalance and people are being taken advantage of, or people are being taken for granted in a professional relationship, then that relationship, the growth of that particular relationship is immediately stunted. The fourth thing you want to think about when it comes to goal setting, community, or collective goal setting with amongst your network is OKRs, right? Objectives and key results. When you have a framework that suggests these are the objectives we are trying to achieve and attain, these are the key results and measurements of how we're going to know that we've accomplished the things, or we're on the pace of accomplishment toward these things. It's going to help create organization. It's going to help create systemic processes. And it's going to help you basically accumulate a track record of success. Your project plans, your spreadsheets, where there's various types of meaningful data and activities and milestones will help you with this pace of achievement along the way. I don't know how many of you have ever used a habit tracker, but I use a habit tracker all the time. And just to keep up with those daily things that I got to knock out every single day, phone calls that I need to make, or people I need to communicate with, or I carve out time in my day to make sure I have time for those things. Because if I don't, then I'm going to fall out of the habit of doing that thing, taking my vitamins, doing my workout, exercising, getting my clothes ready for the next day. Whatever it is, those habits need to be, and you're different. Everybody's different, right? Whatever habits they need to make sure they track those habits. And if you have, if you're on the spectrum, right, and I totally believe I'm on the spectrum somehow, some way. I don't know. I've never been diagnosed with anything, but I'm pretty sure I got ADD, right? But without a habit tracker or something that reminds me on a regular consistent basis to do this, I'm going to get bored pretty easy with the routine, the discipline required. And I'm going to need other ways to achieve a level of accountability or a level of connection to the things I need to do. And their people are excellent for this, right? Having an accountability buddy, a partner to help you stay focused on certain aspects of the mission or the goal, right? Making sure that you have the time and the resources that you freed up to work on the specific milestones or benchmarks that help you progress and get there more efficiently is very, very important. And I have to stress this. If I haven't stressed it enough earlier, you need to understand constant communication is key to being able to adequately leverage all the tools, all the tactics, all the resources, all the techniques, all of the technical processes you need to put in place to make sure you've achieved a maximum effort and make sure that you've gotten to what we call in economics the efficiency frontier, right? Where you've done everything you can, you've leveraged all the resources to the best of your ability, and you've maxed that level of efficiency and effectiveness in a way that's going to be meaningful. And again, this, as you hear me describe this, like, this is not, Marvin, we're talking about goals, right? Yes, we are talking about goals, but we're already talking about the things you're going to need, the supports you're going to need to make sure that you're on that pace of achievement for your goals. And that's being able to leverage your objective keys, your objectives and your key results. The fifth thing we want to talk about when it comes to collective goal setting or goal setting within your team is making sure that the feedback is a constant, ongoing situation and process within the environments that you are participating in and creating. If there's not constantly check-ins, if there's not constantly feedback, this is what I do here, even at Coffee Tea You and Me. I'm always asking you questions, even as I'm sharing information with you, because what's important to me is that you are processing this information, not just receiving the information, but engaging with and in processing the information. And so I ask you, if you have a question, put it in the chat. Or if you have a thought or idea that pops up in your mind as we're going along the way, pop it in the chat. You never know who might be reading that, who might feed off of that, and that energy that you're sharing, and make something of it that might be different, that might be enhance what they're doing. So that feedback loop is a critically important thing. I always ask questions. Do you get it? Do you understand something? Can I explain it to you in a different way that would make it easier and more available to you? I constantly do that as I'm speaking, as I'm training, as I'm developing people, because I want people to feel comfortable giving me the feedback. I want them to feel comfortable saying amen, brother. I want them to be comfortable clapping if that's something that they get. I'm going to get the head nods. I want to get all the feedback that I could possibly get, even as I'm speaking, because it lets me know that people are plugged in. People get what I'm talking about. And it's important, right? In constant communication. I'm always looking for the next survey. I like to fill out surveys when people ask me, well, give us a survey about it. I do a good job. I make sure I'm clear and I'm concise, but I'm also thorough to communicate, not just what I experienced, but how I felt about what I experienced, because I know that's what's required to know. Now, let's talk about feedback when you get a chance. Let's think about this for a second. When you give people feedback, you want to make sure that the feedback is specific, right? Because I can't respond. You cannot respond to general feedback. If I ask you, well, how do things go? Oh, it was amazing. That's not enough. What specifically was amazing about it to you? That's really the question that someone's asking you. You need to turn that into a specific feedback question all the time. Stop talking in generalities. And we tend to do that because it's safe language. But that's the kind of language that doesn't really get anything done when it comes to working with people and having people grow as a result of the things that you shared or the things that you achieve. So as you're building your network, right, you want to provide people specific feedback and specific ideas about how you want the relationships to grow. What's useful for you in terms of times to check in, what kind of communication works best for you in terms of getting and achieving or giving and sharing feedback. Have those conversations with people that you're bringing into your network. Don't take it for granted that they think the same way about the things that you think are important as you do. And don't take for granted that they're going to commit the kinds of resources that you think they should commit to the effort. Because a lot of times we make a lot of assumptions about, what's really working and what's really not working, even for ourselves. We think, oh, Well, nothing's broken, so everything must be working fine. Yeah, ask the question. Can it be better? Ask the question. Can we do it better? Ask it of yourself. Ask it to somebody else. You know, ask other people. Do you say anything I'm doing here that could be better? Or can I explain this differently, or in a more open or more communicative way? Don't feel like you don't need the feedback. None of us reach a level of mastery where the feedback doesn't offer us something. Again, if your group and your team is not constantly communicating, there's going to be things that slip through the cracks. If you're not constantly looking to improve, looking to do more, looking to find out ways to become more effective, more efficient, then something is going to slip through the cracks. You're not going to be taking advantage of diversity or perspective, and you're not going to get there. The last thing I want to mention, it's probably one of the most important aspects of building and growing your network, right? Is when you recognize the achievements of people within your network. It boosts morale within your network and it reinforces the commitment, right? If there's a shared, especially if there's a shared objective that everybody in the network is trying to achieve. And that's very difficult to accomplish because in a network, you have all kinds of diverse characters and people from different perspectives and backgrounds. Some may know each other, some may not know each other. Some may agree that we want to work together collectively. Some may want to just, I just want to work with you, Marv. I just want to work with you, Bob. I don't really want to, work with everybody on the team. I have my own network. I'm babysitting over here, but I can borrow some aspects of your network and make it work for my network, right? So that always is the reality, right? But in the moments where there's some shared objectives for a small space or a period of time, maybe there's a party going on, maybe there is a meeting where you bring everybody together just for the fun of bringing everybody together to recognize the achievements that you've made over the last year or two, whatever. And there's some people who were actively engaged, some people who weren't a part of that process, but they get to come to the party anyway because they're witness to the greatness of the team effort or the collaboration or whatever that is. All that stuff is critically important to build morale. It's critically important to move people forward, to give people that esprit de corps, to make them feel good about who they are. And I did two technical things over the last 20 years as I've developed my own organization that have helped people do exactly that, knowing how to celebrate their wins, knowing how to work together to honor one another, show respect, all this kind of good stuff. And the first tool I created was the RAP report. The RAP report is a tool, and it's an acronym. It stands for respect, affection, and praise. And it's a tool that I created to help people remember and realize and recognize that when they are looking to give somebody feedback, especially positive feedback over something they've done, you want to show what is it that I respect you for? What is it something? What have you done that is so significant and so relevant that I think I respect you for? Right? How do I feel about it? That's the affection part, right? When I experienced this, I felt this way. I felt elated. I felt overjoyed. I felt overcome with positive sensations and feelings, and it made me really want to do more with you. Right? Respect, affection, and praise. This is how special this was to me. It was so special it was to me that I can't thank you enough. I feel grateful for the opportunity to even be around you in the presence of you as a result of all the things we did together and so on and so forth. And this has been a significant impact on my life. Respect, affection, and praise. That's the RAP report. You want to try to do that with as many people as you possibly can, as much as you possibly can, because you don't want people to have the doubt or the misunderstanding that whatever they did with you, whatever they happened around you, whatever, that was insignificant to you. All right. You want to be grateful. By the way, you can't do this RAP report stuff. And if you want the details of the RAP report sent to you, definitely let me know. But building your network and having the RAP report ready for people that you bring into your network and as you collaborate with them, be willing to use that RAP report as a tool to help secure those relationships and make them stronger and to grow them, you have lost your mind. The other thing that I created that is super, super helpful, especially when bringing new people into your network, is the True Voice process. True Voice is an acronym again, and it's really getting to the heart and soul, the meaning of a person as they kind of go through and develop whatever ideas they're coming up with, right? So True Voice is a great way to help people get in touch with their vision, with the obstacles that are impeding or in the way of that vision, or opportunities that might be useful to help them, get closer to their vision, the instinctual nature of the universe and the things that are around them that they feel that they are guided towards, in order to put some meat on the bones when it comes to that vision, the commitments of time, talent, and treasure that they're going to have to make in order to pull that vision off, and then the environmental concerns, the macro level concerns that might be affecting them when it comes to that vision, right? What are the big factors that are outside of their control that they have to watch out for that could affect how that vision happens? If you go through the True Voice questionnaire yourself, you're going to get in touch with things and emotions and processes that you may not have gone through in yourself before, right? But if you interview somebody else, you're going to pull out of them those same thoughts, those same feelings, those same ideas in ways that they may not even share with their best friends to date. Because what do we tend to talk about, quite frankly, when we get together, especially even old friends? We talk about the things we used to do, the things we once got into, the parties we used to have, the people we all know collectively. And we're talking about that kind of stuff more so than we're talking about how we're working together to move forward. What are we moving forward into? You know, most of us are not good at vision casting. That brings me to another thought. But if you get a chance to bring people's vision out of them and help them express it and talk about it, they have to love you. By the way, I haven't done a True Voice interview with anyone. I've done thousands of them. I haven't had a True Voice interview with anyone after I explained it to them that didn't get the fact that this is not about me. This is about them. This is about them sharing with me enough information in a short period of time that could make them say to themselves, he gets me. If anybody understands where I'm coming from, it's Coach Powell. Why? Because they've shared with me, because of the questionnaire, the information that they probably haven't shared with anybody in any concise period of time like that ever before. And it makes them really, really reflect positively about the people who ask the questions. So questions are so powerful. People love, that old statement. Asking regular questions are very, very important, and it's a way of celebrating the people that you're bringing to your network. Because now, if I'm armed with the True Voice questionnaire, the answers to the True Voice questionnaire, and I'm introducing you to someone else, I'm introducing you in a different way than I'm introducing, somebody who just has. I'm just talking about your skills, right? Or you're an excellent banker. That's great. That's not enough. That's not enough news. That's not enough good news, right? But my friend, the banker, Bruce Green, is probably one of the most passionate people in the world when it comes to banking. He really believes that banks should do a better job of not just the due diligence of people that they bring into the lending environment, but teaching people how to be credit worthy from a corporate or organizational point of view, so they can bring them into bigger and bigger dollars in a more safe and secure way. And so his vision is to make sure that there's billions of dollars floating around the small business community, because the small business community he's through his efforts has raised up the level of the small business community in a way that they are all bankable and they're all financeable, and it's easy for people to see the value that they bring to the table, right? So that's his vision, and the only thing that's standing in the way of him achieving his vision is really having and training enough people underneath him to really do that. Because he already has the systems and the tools available to make it happen. He just needs enough people to plug into those same systems and deal with it, and he knows it's going to work because he's tried it out for several years with several people, and he already knows. So all he's going to do is get people who are willing to buy into his process, and he'll be able to create what we call super bankers all over the world, globally, that will help small businesses lift them up and make their lives a lot better, a lot easier, and have them take smarter, calculated risks that make sense for them to take in their investment market or whatever their market is. love this guy, right? But that's because I could do all these things with him because I've done the true voice with him. I could tell you why these things are important to him, how he hopes about how he's going to go about implementing it, and what kind of commitments he's willing to make towards that because I've asked him these questions already, and I know what things not to bring to him because he's busy dealing with whatever obstacles he's dealing with, and whatever you're talking about doing is not going to help him solve one of those obstacles. True voice is a very, very, very important part of a strategy that you need to have in your toolbox when you want to bring in new people to your network. Okay, let me repeat really quick to kind of recap what I just talked about in a detailed way, but in a more simplified way. Ultimately, what you want to do in creating goal setting for your team, your network, your people, you want to make sure you're always having systems and strategies in place for clear communication. Right? You need to be understood and you need to understand other people. You need to have systems and tools in place to have shared accountability, which means there needs to be a clear benefit that everybody can see and clear activities that everybody can do that we understand and that we're willing to, take seriously and put some commitment and effort behind it. There's also got to be some strategic alignment. What do I mean by that? If you have people in your team, in your network, or in your group that's not interested in very similar things, then they're going to be difficult to deal with. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have, and this is the diversity versus homogeneity idea, right? You have to have diverse people because that's where you're going to get different perspectives. But just because you have different perspectives doesn't mean everybody wants to work together cohesively and collaboratively. And you have to figure out what on those different ideas and goals and different things you want to achieve, where you can carve out a core group of people who really want to collaborate and work together. That doesn't mean they're not important to the network because they don't fit in that collaborative model, but it does mean when it comes to implementation, the level of trust and the level of effectiveness that you're going to be able to get with a core group of team versus a larger group of people all throwing out ideas from a diversity perspective is going to be a little bit different. But we might want to get into that a little bit communication. Next week, we're definitely going to get into more of a philosophical understanding of goals and why we as human beings have used goals to make our greatest achievements necessary, what inspired us from a spiritual point of view to do that. We're going to talk about that next week. So I hope you guys have a great time. I know I did. This is going to be the end of the session. We went a little long today, man. We went almost an hour today. But I want to make sure that if you have any questions or whatever, keep putting it in the chat. Keep coming out with new ideas and thoughts. Please share us, like us, do whatever you need to do on whatever platform you're looking for to keep this party going. Because I like doing this every Friday and like working with entrepreneurs and business leaders. If you know people who might need my help, my information is scrolling across the screen. I'm Coach Powell of Coach Powell Training Development. We're signing off, and we are out of here. Thank you so very much.